Okay, so let me see. I'm going to walk you through how to create your musculoskeletal sketch here. Um, I'm starting with the skeleton. So this is our elbow, our humerus, ulna, and radius. Obviously, my drawing's not great. I'm doing this on the computer, which is not I'm not good at. So I'm leaving the bones because it took me too many tries to get to this point. So once you've drawn in your humerus, ulna, and radius, we know this is ulna because it's bigger, and it's a bigger part of this joint, our elbow joint, which is a hinge joint. So the next thing we're going to do, and you can do this on a piece of paper. I'm really bad at this. Is we're going to add in our bicep. So we add in a little muscle here. So it falls along our humerus. And it's kind of like an almond shape. Our muscles are kind of like almond shaped. And I want this outline to come down a bit. Good. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I like to add in lines that kind of show the structure. So our muscles are striated, which is a fancy word for long lines of uh, tissue. So the tissues in these long layers, these lines, because remember they contract and expand. So these lines will pull together and then relax. So this muscle will shorten and lengthen. And that's how we create our movement. So I'm adding in all these striations, these lines, to kind of show that throughout our muscle. Okay, and this is our bicep. So if you look on your arm, your biceps right here, it's that big muscle. It's where you show people which way the beach is, right? You're like, the beach is that way. If you're trying to show off to someone. Okay. Okay, so we got a muscle. We got some bone, but hey, this muscle can't do anything if it doesn't have a way to connect to our skeleton. So we need to add in our tendons. So again, right, our tendons, they come down. Ooh, it's a little too much. And connect. So they connect to this end point of our muscle. And I'm going to clean that up in a minute. And they connect to our radius and ulna. So they kind of wrap around the end of our muscle and connect. And then same thing on the humerus. So these thick bands of connective tissue are what can put our muscles and skeleton together. They're really important. Okay, so I have some tendons here. I just want to clean this drawing up a little bit. Show that, there's a little bit of overlap of muscle and tendons. Okay, so I have my muscle. Obviously, I'm not a great digital artist, so I'm not going to be judgmental on your artwork. Okay, so the next thing we need is, hey, all these bones are just kind of floating out here. They need to connect also. So we need to add in our glue. So I'll use green for that. Uh, so these are our ligaments connecting our bones to each other. There's fireworks outside. Okay. And I'm going to label it. So we have ligaments. These are connective tissue that connect our bones. And we'll just label everything to make it really obvious. We have muscle tissue. biceps. So bi means two, like you're at a bicycle, it has two wheels. So the biceps means two heads. So there's kind of, it's actually broken up into two, but we're not going to get that detailed in it. And we'll keep it the same color. So we have our muscle tissue, that's our biceps here. We have our ligament connecting our humerus to our ulna and radius. And we have our tendons. That looks bad. That looks really bad. Okay, that looks better. And we have tendons. Cool. So this is, we're really focused on is joints and movement here. So we have tendons connecting muscle to bone. We have ligaments connecting our bones together. And we have our muscle tissue. That's what's going to create our movement. So how does that happen? Well, when our biceps contracts, this is going to come up. So our radius and ulna are going to move up. So just like this, right? My bicep contracts, my hand comes towards my head on this hinge joint. So speaking of hinge joint, let's label that, right? We have a hinge joint here. And let's do the pencil. I'm still learning this stuff, so. And we're going to add in hinge joint here. Oh, don't want to do that. Hinge joint. So we're really just showing a drawing with everything we've been learning so far, putting it all together here. Okay, we got a hinge joint, we got ligaments, we got biceps that are contracting to move our arm towards us, and we have tendons. So there are differences in tendons. Some tendons just hold the muscle to bone and they don't move anywhere. Those are called the origin. And the insertion point is where the tendons connect and move our skeleton. So they're the tendons that create the movement, and there's tendons that just stabilize the muscle. So we're going to label those two. So let's go with, I don't know, purple. So this tendon here is the origin tendon that holds the muscle in place. So it holds the muscle in place. It's not the driver of movement like we see with our insertion point. Okay, this drawing is gonna get real messy. I think I've apologized enough, so I'm not going to anymore. Okay, now over here we have our insertion. Always make the text like massive. Insertion point. Tendon that pulls the bone to create. So it's really like this pulling movement. This muscle tissue contracts and it pulls that skeleton up. So it's pulling it along. Okay, cool. We're getting a lot in here now. So we have an insertion point. These are our new vocab words, right? The origin point is here. It's the tendon that's holding and stabilizing. And then we have the insertion point. That's the one that's actually pulling and moving our skeleton around. So when this contracts. And I should mention, this is skeletal muscle tissue. So we learned about smooth and cardiac. I just want to clarify that this is skeletal. Okay, so we've got everything going on here to create this, right? To bend my elbow and bring my hand towards me, we use our bicep. Okay, well, if it ended there, then we wouldn't have much control. We'd only be able to do one movement. We'd be stuck like this. So we need something to bring our arm back down. So in order to do that, we need an opposing muscle. So luckily, we know what that is because we are all great anatomists now. And I need to add in an opposing muscle. So again, skeletal muscle tissue, but it's on the opposite side. So let's see. Similar idea, right? We're going to draw in our muscle. And I want to add in those striations, which means lines, because that's how our muscle tissue is formed. It has these long lines, these long fibers, kind of like a rope fiber. If you cut open a rope and look at the fibers, it's very, very similar to that. So they shrink and relax, they contract and expand. There's so many ways you could say it. Okay, so we have these nice long lines. And just like the other one, we need to add in our tendons. So boop. This drawing is not as nice, but that's okay. I'll fix it up. And wow, my muscle is way short here. Trying not to, I'm really gonna have to fix it up. That's okay. All right, so we're adding in our tendons again. So they intermingle on the ends of our muscles. Those tendons and muscles kind of overlap a bit. Cool. Trying to make it more clear. Maybe I should like speed this video up. Make my voice high pitch. Okay. All right. Cool. So let's do some labeling again. And I want to make these labels a little more clear again. There. Finish off my circle. Because this joint, right, that's where the action is. Ligament looks good. I should make it plural. Okay, you might be learning that I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, even though my drawing's terrible. Okay, ligament, and I want to bring it down. Cool, it's all color-coded. Okay, so let's label this again. So it's skeletal muscle tissue. In this case, it's the triceps. So remember, ceps means head. So 3 heads on this muscle here are triceps. Let's move it over, make it a little bit smaller like our other one. Cool. So when our biceps contracts, it pulls the forearm towards us. When the tricep contracts, the opposite happens. So let's show that. So in order to bring our arm back down, I don't know why that arrow's bigger. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna, you know what? I don't like that. Okay, whatever. It's still big. All right. So in order to bring it down, the tricep contracts. So these are opposing muscles. So we're going to add in opposing muscles here. Opposing muscles. And I want to move it so we can read it. So muscles that work in opposition of each other to create symmetrical. Nah, I don't like symmetrical. Create movement. So, and then let's make that. Let's just make that. No, we have black already. This nice blue. Okay. So, opposing muscles. What is that? It's muscles that work in opposition, so against each other, to create movement. So, the bicep and tricep, they're a team. They do opposite things, right? When one contracts, the other relaxes. So, let's add that in. When one contracts, the other relaxes. So they're kind of pairs. They work in pairs. So muscles that work in opposition. Yeah, I'm going to leave it. So they work in pairs. So when this contracts, this relaxes. When this contracts, this relaxes. So they switch. So the one other thing I'll add is agonist and antagonist. So let's see. Can I erase? Maybe not. So agonist muscle that is contracting. So the muscle that's contracting is considered the agonist. It's creating the movement. So maybe you read a lot of plays, you have been taking good notes in your English class. That means we have an antagonist. So the opposite is true for that one. So the antagonist muscle that is relaxing in the opposing muscle. That's too much. Muscle that is relaxing. Let's keep it simple, right? I like to go overboard sometimes, but I'm not going to. Okay. So here's our final product. We already know about joints. We know about this connective tissue. We have learned about skeletal muscle. But what's new? Well, we now know what the origin is. So the origin is the tendon that holds the muscle in place. And the origin is holding the muscle in place to our skeletal system. We have the insertion point. That is the tendon that's actually creating the movement, right? Because this muscle contracts, pulls on the skeleton, up comes our arm. We also learned that muscles work in opposition. So if there's a muscle that pulls this arm up, there's a muscle that pulls it back down. In this case, it's the triceps. So they work together to create opposite movements. So when the bicep is contracting, it becomes the agonist. When it's relaxing, it becomes the antagonist. Same thing with the tricep. So these are some key terms that are important in understanding how our body actually creates movement. And there's a lot that goes into our muscles, skeleton, and connective tissue all working together as one. Thank you.